This podcast is made possible by listener members of Nashville Public Radio.
This is the Nashvillager Podcast. It's July 29th, 2025, and this is a big date in history for creating better connections across the nation. The very first phone call between the East and West Coasts happened on this day in 1914, just 2 days after the last section of line was strung up to service the San Francisco World's Fair. Also, the first proof-of-concept transcontinental airmail flight began on this day in 1920, mapping out a route for carrying correspondence from New York City to San Francisco. Regular service got up and running a couple of months later. I'm Nina Cardona, and this is your daily digest of what's happening around Middle Tennessee with some context from Nashville Public Radio, WPLN News. Here in Nashville, there's a big new idea for physically connecting downtown and the airport. Late yesterday, Elon Musk's Boring Company announced plans to build a tunnel to bypass the roads and street traffic altogether. The suggestion carries an echo of one of the perpetual questions about Nashville transit. If the freight train companies won't share their lines with transit, why don't we just build subways? And the answer that is often given is simple: karst topography. What is that? Well, it's the kind of ground that much of Middle Tennessee is built on. It means the bedrock, in our case that's limestone, is soluble. In other words, over time, it can dissolve in water. That's how our region's many caves came to be. It's why sinkholes sometimes open up after a lot of rain. It can be a contributing factor to the rock slides that occasionally shut down roads. Our bedrock is mostly strong, but it's sometimes crumbly, and that can be a nightmare for tunnels. Limestone can be unpredictable when you're trying to bore through it. And if it cracks and then groundwater makes it to that crack, watch out. That's a recipe for a potentially flooded tunnel with all kinds of ripple effects for the surrounding land, not to mention the complications if the tunnel route turns out to pass through undiscovered caverns or underground waterways. This happened when Vanderbilt was tunneling under part of its campus. Now, we do have tunnels in Nashville. Back in 2016, WPLN's Tony Gonzalez did a big exploration of them in an episode of the Curious Nashville podcast. He found large passages to carry sewage lined with brick about 130 years ago, many of which are essentially streams and creeks that were redirected below the ground surface and buried. There's 1.5 miles of tunnels under downtown used to pipe steam and chilled water to heat and cool large buildings. Similar systems have been used to maintain comfortable temperatures across the Vanderbilt and Tennessee State campuses. But tunnels to carry people are few and far between in the city, despite many rumored underground passages. Transportation tunnels, even ones designed to handle people traveling on foot, have to be both big and dry, and that can be complicated and costly here. Now, a lot of that depends on the particulars of the exact path of any given tunnel and on the particular equipment that is used. The Boring Company has built one transportation tunnel in Las Vegas, but that is not the sinkhole hotspot that Middle Tennessee is. So there are a ton of questions to be asked about the particulars of what's being planned here and how to best safeguard what's above ground over any new tunnels planned for our area. In just a few minutes, a pollution problem in East Tennessee. That's coming up after the newscast.
Tennessee's legislature has passed a record-breaking number of anti-LGBTQ laws. I'm Mariana Baca-Yao, and as WPLN's Power and Equity reporter, I focus not only on how marginalized communities contend with those new laws, but how they come together in spite of them.
I think what gives me hope is that someone like you is covering this. Because if the overwhelming narrative is one of defeat, how can we have hope?
Listen here on 90.3 WPLN News.
Here's the latest from WPLN News. The Nashville airport could be an 8-minute drive from downtown, says a spokesperson for Elon Musk's Boring Company. The idea of quickly connecting travelers between the airport and downtown Nashville is not new. As of this week, the Boring Company is planning to make it happen with an underground tunnel. WPLN's Metro reporter Cynthia Abrams reports the privately funded project is moving quickly. But after a splashy announcement yesterday, there are still unknowns.
The governor, the president of the Boring Company, and U.S. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy all touted the tunnel as transformative.
This is going to be a project that's done in 2 years? Like, that's unheard of in big infrastructure projects.
They're saying the tunnel, which aims to bypass typical traffic with a fleet of underground Teslas, will ease congestion along a corridor that has long been identified as needing some help. Governor Bill Lee says the Boring Company plans to break ground in just a few weeks, yet didn't have many basic details.
Exact location has not been determined yet. It will be along state routes, but there's a lot yet to be finalized, of course.
Leaders say tunneling through Nashville's rock will be difficult, but are confident it will be solvable. The project comes at a time when Nashville is ramping up its bus service and transportation spending. It's not clear how this project interplays with that. While leaders of the Airport Authority and Nashville Chamber of Commerce gushed at the event, Mayor Freddie O'Connell was not present and says he has questions about the tunnel's potential impact. Cynthia Abrams, WPLN News.
The Boring Company has constructed tunnels in Nevada, California, and Texas, although only one in Las Vegas is operational. A job fair for the Nashville project is scheduled for this Wednesday. Officials say the tunnel will be completed in 2 years, although similar projects have experienced construction delays. Projects in California and Illinois fell through because of environmental concerns. Oracle's planned campus along Nashville's East Bank is inching forward. Metro recently approved a rezoning request for the nearly 70-acre property, which will one day serve as Oracle's world headquarters. Currently, the site is zoned for industrial use, but the request, which will still need approval from the city's Metro Council, would allow Oracle to build a mixed-use development, meaning residential, retail, and office spaces. Oracle founder Larry Ellison has said the new campus would include a medical clinic and a park. Plans also include a new pedestrian bridge and a riverfront greenway. The Tennessean reports Oracle has spent more than $300 million on the land alone. The entire project is estimated to cost around $1.2 billion. The company did receive a property tax discount plus a state economic development grant worth $65 million. The heated conversation over DEI programs on college campuses is going through another round in Tennessee. Last week, employees at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville were recorded talking about how to navigate presidential executive orders to eliminate DEI offices and to continue their missions. Following the release of the tapes, Senator Marsha Blackburn sent a letter to Chancellor John D. Plowman saying that the tapes were proof the university was merely changing the names of the programs. In response, the chancellor says the university is compliant with the letter and spirit of the law on DEI. The Knoxville News Sentinel obtained an internal email from UT President Randy Boyd saying UT will conduct an independent review to ensure compliance and require every employee to undergo mandatory compliance training. Vanderbilt University is facing similar accusations after covert recordings of its staff members. Vanderbilt has hired high-profile law firm Baker Donaldson to review the incident. A Millersville police detective was indicted for aggravated perjury and misconduct. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation alleges that Todd Doris made a false statement while under oath. His arrest comes a year after News Channel 5 investigations raised questions about whether Doris was truthful in his testimony about his role in a child predator sting. Doris previously worked for multiple police departments in Tennessee and was demoted when he worked at the nearby Greenbrier Police Department, according to a statewide police database obtained by WPLN News. This is not the first time the Millersville Police Department has come under scrutiny. News Channel 5 investigated another Millersville police employee for spreading conspiracy theories about local politicians and the Covenant School shooting. Small, achievable goals help get the job done. That's one of the mantras in the latest installment of the In My Place series on This Is Nashville. It explores how last-minute challenges can be a roadblock to finding permanent housing for people who are homeless. Lisa Abel reflects on some emotional barriers she experienced at a time when she was homeless, and her case manager found her an apartment in a tall building.
I'm scared of that. How am I going to escape if I need to? 2, is there any way to be outdoors from my door? And 3, how small is it? You know, is it going to be so small that I'm feeling like I can't get out of there? And he found me a spot that was only 4 stories up right next to the stairwell with a balcony. I felt so lucky. I think I have princess power.
You can hear more about last-minute hurdles to housing in the latest installment of our series on preventing and ending homelessness. Listen live at noon today or catch up in the This Is Nashville podcast feed. If you think back to the early months of the pandemic, you may remember quarantine, Tiger King, and an enormous wave of unemployment. Tennessee received over 500,000 initial unemployment claims in those first few months, with more than 300,000 people relying on the aid through much of the spring and summer. Now Tennessee's Department of Labor is demanding thousands of dollars back from people it claims were overpaid. Patty Sellers of the Legal Aid Society tells WSMV she has dozens of clients who are being asked to pay back their unemployment benefits. Sellers believes the Department of Labor gave blanket approvals to an onslaught of applicants and took a long time to follow up on their eligibility, causing an unknown number of errors. Even clients who were eligible for unemployment benefits are being told they owe money back. Plus, many people don't realize the state is asking for this money because notifications are sent through the unemployment portal, which many no longer use. Often, by the time they find out, it's too late to appeal. And in some cases, the state is charging interest. You'll find more news anytime at WPLN.org. Nearly 10 years ago, a nitric acid plant began operating in the rural East Tennessee community of Midway. Since then, the plant has violated state and federal rules, releasing toxic chemicals into the air and waterways. WUOT's Pierce Gentry reports.
In this small community 10 miles west of Greenville, there are about 2,000 people living within view of a sprawling chemical plant called U.S. Nitrogen. Here, they mix ammonia with nitric acid to produce ingredients used to make blasting powder. I met Sherry Cooper, a retiree who lives less than a mile from the plant, at a nearby public park. She says she can't stand to be at her home because it's so close to the plant that the air agitates her eyes and lungs.
I was literally dying up on my hill. I had crystal nodulins in my lungs, tumors. I couldn't hardly walk or talk, so I didn't leave my hill. I've been a prisoner on my hill since 2016.
Cooper's convinced it's the gases from the plant, which contain toxic chemicals like nitric acid and ammonia, that have been making her and others sick. Since U.S. Nitrogen opened in 2016, Cooper says she sees clouds of orange gas being released from the plant at least twice a month. She's called local authorities, but gets a similar response each time.
They said, oh yeah, they do that quite often. I said, isn't it dangerous? Oh no, there's nothing in it that'll hurt you.
But nitric acid is dangerous. According to the CDC, exposure to the gas can burn the eyes and skin and cause difficulty breathing. Long-term exposure can lead to even more severe lung problems. WUOT News verified that in the last 10 years, U.S. Nitrogen has had at least 5 excess emission events, 3 chemical spills, and 4 violations of the Clean Water Act. Most recently, in November, they released over 900 pounds of nitric acid into the air. Here's a U.S. Nitrogen manager describing that release to Greene County 911.
We had a failure during startup of our nitric acid plant. It's probably one of our worst yet, so it's probably going to scare some people. But there's absolutely no harm to human health or the environment.
Later, a local resident called in.
Yeah, I'm down here in Midway, near U.S. Nitrogen, and I went outside this morning. And my eyes were burning, my skin was burning, and they had orange stuff coming everywhere out of their pipes.
U.S. Nitrogen declined an interview, but in a statement, they say,
our priority is to identify any opportunities to enhance safeguards and to take proactive steps that further protect our employees, neighbors, and the environment.
The Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation, or TDEC, often chooses not to fine U.S. Nitrogen for its permit violations.
They've really failed to make U.S. Nitrogen even live up to the terms of their permits, let alone issue a permit that's really protective.
That's Axel Ringa. He leads the litigation committee of the Sierra Club's Tennessee chapter. Over his decades of experience advocating for environmental justice, he says he's noticed that TDEC tends to favor industrial interests over environmental well-being.
They don't really make what I consider a good faith effort to really pin down what is happening.
That job has fallen to local activists, such as Park Overall. She's kept up with the plant's violations and complains to regulators at TDEC and the Federal Environmental Protection Agency constantly.
Everybody's gone along to get along with industry. Jobs, 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 economic development, and that has blinded everyone to what's happening. And what's happening is dangerous. It's poison.
Now, after an accident in June at a similar plant owned by the same company in Ohio prompted an evacuation, federal regulators have taken interest. The U.S. Chemical Safety Board announced it will investigate the plant in Ohio along with U.S. Nitrogen. I'm Pierce Gentry, WUOT News.
The story was produced as part of the Appalachia Mid-South Newsroom, and that's a collaboration between NPR and several public radio stations in West Virginia, Tennessee, and Kentucky, including WPLN. We do this roundup of Nashville news every weekday, so subscribe in your favorite podcasting app to make sure you never miss an episode. And if you like this, you'll probably enjoy the Nashvillager newsletter, too. You'll get perspective from more of my colleagues at Nashville Public Radio and links to the stories we're following. Sign up for those daily emails at WPLN.org/Nashvillager. Thanks so much for listening. Let's make this day a good one, and we'll catch back up tomorrow.